The garage door was wide open. That was the first thing Chuck noticed when he pulled up to Shirley's house that Tuesday morning. He knew immediately something was wrong. Shirley never left her garage open. She was meticulous about her home. Spotless floors, everything in its place, every door locked. He rang the doorbell. No answer. He found the spare key hidden in the old KFC box under the tree. He went inside. The kitchen was in disarray. The bedroom had been ransacked. The TV was still on. And from the bathroom, he could hear running water. He pushed open the bathroom door. Shirley was in the bathtub. There was blood everywhere. He ran from the room. He tried to dial 911. His hands were shaking so badly, it took him several attempts. When he finally got through, he told the dispatcher his fiancée was dead. The dispatcher asked him to go back in and check for a pulse. Chuck said he couldn't make himself walk back in there. From the way she looked, he said, Shirley had clearly been dead for a long time. What investigators found inside that house over the next few hours, the evidence, the details, the bizarre story behind all of it, would turn out to be one of the most disturbing cases any of them had ever worked. Shirley Pierce was born on August 11, 1950 in North Carolina. She grew up in a large, close-knit family, someone people described as warm, kind, and easy to be around from the time she was young. Her first marriage to a man named Randall Pierce lasted 11 years. They had a daughter together. When the marriage ended, Shirley raised her daughter on her own. For years, she worked as an executive assistant at Charlotte Motor Speedway in Concord, North Carolina, a career she took seriously and one that gave her a deep love for classic cars. Later, around 50 years old, she moved into a role as executive administrative assistant at Tuscarora Yarns, a textile company in Mount Pleasant, North Carolina. That was where she met Chuck. He did business with the company. They started dating. 3 years later, they got engaged. Shirley was 62. Her life had expanded. A job she was known for, a grandson she adored and made time for whenever she could, charity work, travel, the outdoors. Chuck lived about 110 miles away, so during the week they lived separately and spent weekends together, trading off the drive. By all accounts, she was settled, content, moving towards something good.
In late July 2013, Shirley spent the weekend at Chuck's place and drove home Sunday. She went to work Monday, stayed late as usual, sometimes 12 hours or more, and called Chuck on her way home. They made plans for Tuesday. Chuck was leaving on a business trip and was going to drop his dogs at Shirley's so she could watch them while he was away. Tuesday morning, Chuck pulled up to her house on Enochville and noticed the garage door standing wide open. He rang the bell, no answer. He retrieved the spare key from its hiding place, an old KFC bucket under a tree in the yard. He let the dogs out first, checked the mailbox. It was empty. He went inside. The kitchen was in disarray. The bedroom had been turned over. Items from Shirley's purse had been scattered across the bed. The TV was still on, and from the hallway he could hear the sound of running water. He went to the bathroom. Before we go further, if you're watching Cold Case Evidence for the first time, this is what we do every week. We cover cases like this one, the details that didn't add up, how investigators pieced it together, and the truth behind it. Subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss the next one. Now back to Enochville. When police arrived, they found blood almost immediately, spots of it starting near the garage, trailing through the house and leading toward the bedroom. A bloody shoe print near the front door. In the living room, the contents of a jewelry box had been dumped across the floor, the box itself left nearby. In the bedroom, Shirley's purse had been emptied onto the bed, and there, in sections of the bedroom, the smell of bleach. Paper towels scattered nearby, as if someone had attempted to wipe the blood away. In the bathroom, Shirley's body had been covered in cuts and abrasions. Defensive wounds covered her hands and arms. She had fought hard. And lodged in her neck was what appeared to be a broken knife blade. The medical examiner later confirmed she had been stabbed and cut multiple times. The attack had lasted several minutes at minimum. The wound to her neck, delivered with enough force that the blade snapped off and remained inside her body, was what killed her. One more detail: Shirley's fingernails had been cut very short. Even if she had scratched her attacker during the struggle, investigators would have nothing usable to recover. Time of death was estimated at the previous evening or sometime during the night, roughly 10 hours before Chuck arrived.
As investigators walked through the house, the scene began telling them something. The number of wounds on Shirley's body suggested a level of focused, sustained violence that didn't fit a random burglary gone wrong. The jewelry box dumped on the floor, the purse emptied on the bed. It looked staged. Nothing of real value was missing. The gold engagement ring Chuck had given Shirley was still on her finger. The killer had used bleach. They had clearly spent time inside the house after the murder, trying to clean up. That wasn't the behavior of someone who broke in randomly and panicked. This was someone who knew Shirley lived alone. Someone who felt confident that no one would walk in unexpectedly. Someone who had planned for what came next. Detectives began looking at the people in Shirley's life, but before they could get very far, the phone rang. Word of Shirley's death had already begun spreading among her friends and colleagues. One of them called the police within hours of the body being found. His name was Marlene Johnson. He was the CFO at the company where Shirley worked. He told detectives immediately that he had a strong idea who had killed her. His wife. 61-year-old Marlene Johnson. According to Irvin, the problems had started 6 years earlier, in 2007, the first time he introduced Marlene to his colleagues at work, including Shirley. Something about that moment locked into Marlene's mind and wouldn't let go. She became convinced that Irvin and Shirley were having an affair. He told her repeatedly it wasn't true. Shirley was a coworker, nothing more. Marlene wouldn't hear it. Month after month, her certainty grew. She started looking for proof. Their daughter once found Marlene crawling under Irvin's car. They checked afterward. She had attached a GPS tracker. Marlene started showing up at his workplace, watching, monitoring his movements. A year after it began, the situation turned violent. During another confrontation over the affair she was certain was happening, Marlene grabbed a knife and seriously injured Irvin. He got a restraining order, moved out, and though they remained technically married, the relationship was over in every practical sense. Marlene was also ordered to stay away from Irvin's workplace. She ignored that order more than once, on one occasion coming to the parking lot to slash the tires on his company car. Irvin later discovered that someone had broken a window at his home and replaced it with a sheet of plastic held on by Velcro, designed to be opened from the outside. He was certain Marlene had done it to create a way into his house. When detectives spoke with people close to Shirley, the picture became more alarming. Over the years, Marlene had physically attacked Shirley twice. Both times, Shirley had filed for restraining orders against her. The most recent one had expired only a few weeks before Shirley was killed.
The first attack happened at a charity event Shirley had been involved in. Marlene came after her there. Shirley suffered minor injuries and went to court for protection. The second happened in 2011, 2 years before the murder. Shirley had gone to a restaurant with colleagues, including Irvin, a place they often went after work on Fridays. A waitress came to the table and quietly warned them that Marlene was sitting on the other side of the restaurant, hiding behind a menu, watching them. Shirley got up to leave. Her colleagues formed a line in front of her, trying to create a physical barrier. It didn't work. Marlene knocked Shirley to the floor and attacked her. Shirley ended up in hospital. She filed another restraining order, but chose not to press criminal charges, believing the order would be sufficient, that Marlene wouldn't cross that line again. Detectives spoke with the waitress from that restaurant. She told them Marlene had approached her separately and offered to pay her to install hidden cameras inside the restaurant. so she could record Irvin, Shirley, and their colleagues without them knowing. No one on staff had agreed. Shirley's best friend told police that Shirley had mentioned Marlene many times. The silent phone calls, the dead flowers left on her doorstep, the threatening notes left inside her office. And just one day before she died, Shirley had told her friend she was genuinely afraid, that she worried Marlene's behavior might eventually become something worse. It already had. Before detectives could make their next move, a call came in from an officer in a neighboring town. He had been sitting at a red light when a woman in the car ahead of him got out, walked directly up to his window, and demanded to know why he was following her. Before he could respond, she told him that if he was investigating a murder, she hadn't done it, and that she had an alibi. She said her sister had heard on the news that police were looking at her. The officer had no idea what murder she was talking about. He reached out to surrounding departments to ask if anyone had a fresh homicide. That's when they learned about Shirley. He passed everything along to the detectives working the case and added one more detail. The woman had been visibly agitated, extremely nervous, and he had noticed something else while she was talking to him: fresh cuts and bruises on her hands. She told the officer she was heading to her attorney's office, and if police wanted to speak with her, they could find her there. Then she got back in her car and drove away. There was one major problem with her story. No suspects had been named publicly. There was no way her sister could have heard from a news report that Marlene was being looked at. The investigation had barely begun. Detectives went straight to a judge and got a search warrant for Marlene's home, located in one of the most prestigious neighborhoods in the area. What they found when they walked inside stopped them cold. Spread across a table were maps, satellite images of the streets surrounding Shirley's house, photographs taken from outside her home, and a detailed floor plan of the interior. Mixed in with those materials were reports from private investigators Marlene had hired. One had been assigned to watch Irvin, another had been assigned to watch Shirley. Neither had found any evidence of an affair, but one detail in the surveillance reports stood out immediately. The investigator watching Shirley had noted that she often left her garage door open, the same garage door Chuck had found standing open that Tuesday morning. Detectives sent officers to wait outside Marlene's attorney's office, which sat almost directly across the street from the police station. Marlene stayed inside for several hours. The moment she stepped out, officers moved toward her. She turned and ran back toward the building. They caught her before she made it to the door. She was taken into custody. At the station, detectives documented the cuts and bruises on her hands and arms. Several of her fingernails were broken. She appeared exhausted, falling asleep in the chair during the interview. Investigators began to wonder whether she had spent the entire night inside Shirley's house, trying to clean up the blood. Marlene refused to speak at first. When she did, she denied everything and said she had an alibi. She'd spent the night at the home of her partner, a man named Tim. Police went to Tim. He initially backed her up. Then detectives mentioned the word murder. Tim's story changed immediately. He confirmed he had been with Marlene earlier that day, but after that, he hadn't seen her again until 8 o'clock the following morning, after Shirley had already been killed. He also told police that at a restaurant they'd visited together, Marlene had asked him to lie if anyone questioned him about her whereabouts. She had also called him and asked him to go to her house, collect her laptop and tablet, and take them to her attorney's office. He did. Police seized both devices anyway. The lab results came back. Marlene's DNA had been found in 2 critical locations inside Shirley's home: on the paper towels used to wipe up blood, and on the shower curtain that had been pulled over Shirley's body. Credit card records placed Marlene near Shirley's house on the night of the murder. Her phone data confirmed she had been in that same area. And then detectives found one more thing.
The day before Shirley died, Marlene had written a text message intended for Shirley and sent it to the wrong number by mistake. In the message, she told Shirley to stay away from her husband. She wrote that the only way Shirley would ever be with him was over Marlene's dead body. The recipient replied that Marlene had the wrong number. Marlene wrote back, "Is this Shirley Pierce?" As for the knife, investigators visited Tim's home during trial preparation and noticed a knife block in his kitchen with one blade missing. Forensic experts examined the set and concluded the murder weapon was consistent with the missing knife. Marlene had likely taken it from Tim's kitchen beforehand, specifically so it couldn't be easily traced back to her. The trial began in 2018. Marlene was 65 years old. She had spent 5 years in jail awaiting trial. The judge had denied bond throughout. The defense argued that investigators had zeroed in on Marlene too quickly and hadn't seriously pursued other leads. They pointed to the absence of her fingerprints or DNA on the knife blade itself. The prosecution laid out everything else. The maps and satellite images of Shirley's house found in Marlene's home, the private investigator reports noting the open garage door, the same entry point used the night of the murder, the DNA on the paper towels and the shower curtain, the credit card and phone records, the misdirected text message, the missing knife from Tim's kitchen, Tim's testimony about the alibi she'd asked him to fake, the cuts and bruises on her hands, the broken fingernails, the exhaustion. After all of it, the jury deliberated for 45 minutes. Guilty. Marlene collapsed to the floor as the verdict was read. The judge ordered her brought back to her feet so the reading could continue. She was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. In her final statement, she insisted once again that she did not kill Shirley Pierce and that she would never hurt anyone. Here is the thing that sits with you after everything else. Marlene's obsession, the belief that drove 6 years of stalking, 2 violent attacks, and ultimately a murder, was never supported by a single piece of evidence.
2 separate private investigators found nothing. Police found nothing. Prosecutors found nothing. Even Marlene's own defense attorneys found nothing. Irvin had always denied any personal relationship with Shirley, and Shirley herself had been seriously engaged to Chuck for years. The affair Marlene was so certain about, the one she tracked, surveilled, and ultimately killed over, never existed. Not even Marlene's own daughter could defend what had happened. She acknowledged that her mother had serious psychological problems. Forensic experts during the trial did not find a condition severe enough to suggest Marlene hadn't understood what she was doing. She understood. She planned. She brought a knife from Tim's kitchen. She spent hours inside Shirley's house afterward trying to wipe away the evidence. And today, at 73 years old, Marlene Johnson remains in prison. She still insists police never found the real killer. Shirley Pierce was 62 years old. She had a grandson she loved, a fiancé who drove 110 miles to see her on weekends, and a career built on people knowing they could count on her. She had survived 2 physical attacks from Marlene Johnson. She had the restraining orders. She had told her best friend just 1 day before she died that she was afraid. The last restraining order had expired a few weeks before Marlene used a knife from her boyfriend's kitchen to make sure it wouldn't need to be renewed. If cold case evidence helped bring this story to you, subscribing means we can keep covering cases that deserve this kind of attention. Leave your thoughts in the comments. Which detail in this case stopped you cold?